Well, I have a guest in the house this morning, and it is none other than AREVA Martin. AREVA is America's go-to expert, host, and commentator on compelling legal, political, women's, children's, and celebrity issues. Passionate, outspoken, and insightful, AREVA Martin is one of the nation's leading voices in the media, an attorney advocate, legal and social issues commentator, and talk show host. She is an audience favorite on a long list of shows from Dr. Phil to AC360. A recurring guest host on Emmy Award-winning daytime syndicated talk show The Doctors. AREVA's television credits include regular appearances on Good Morning America, World News Tonight, CNN International, CNN Tonight, Daily Mail TV, and talk and news shows on CNN and HLN. AREVA is well known for her no-holds-bar and candid commentary on a range of topics from celebrity news, pop culture, race, politics, the law, and breaking news. Blending her legal expertise with common-sense approaches, AREVA can confront and then coddle while gaining the trust of audiences, viewers, and guests. She has become a valued confidant, source of reliable information, and an inspiration to many, including countless followers and friends she connects with across her various social media platforms. Recognized as one of the nation's leading advocates for autism, the underserved, and children, AREVA is the author of an amazing best-selling book, The Everyday Advocate, Standing Up for Your Child with Autism and Other Special Needs. That's Penguin 2010. After her son's diagnosis with autism, she created Special Needs Network Incorporated, California's premier autism advocacy organization. AREVA has raised millions of dollars for autism and disability-related causes. She has played a leadership role in advocating for new California laws to eliminate disparities in state funding for individuals with disabilities. AREVA's new book, we'll be talking about this morning, Make It Rain, How to Use the Media to Revolutionize Your Business and Brand, hit Amazon's hot new titles list and has received early praise. The book shares AREVA's insider tips on how to find your authentic voice, amplify it, and use it to grow your influence and power. A Harvard Law School graduate, AREVA founded the LA-based civil rights firm Martin & Martin, LLP. As an attorney, she has been involved in high-profile cases and has been identified as a Southern California super lawyer for the last 3 years, a designation reserved for the top 5% of attorneys in the state. She has won countless awards and has been featured in numerous publications from Ebony to Redbook. A quotable authority on workplace disability rights, education, custody, and women's issues, this accomplished and multi-award-winning attorney, syndicated columnist, and public speaker is also quoted and or featured on the pages of publications ranging from Redbook to Huffington Post. AREVA writes regularly for CNN.com, Daily Beast, Thrive Global, and Time.Motto, where you can find her monthly column, Sexist Laws Explained. AREVA's credentials are impressive, but it's her humble beginnings in North St. Louis, passion for life as a mother, community activist, wife, and entrepreneur that makes her relatable to audiences. An avid runner of 5 and 10K races, she knows what it takes to go the distance, and she's not afraid to go there. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome to the Reading Circle microphone none other than AREVA Martin. AREVA Martin, good morning. AREVA?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I thought every now and again I might. Every now and again, sometimes we lose some on the phone connection. So I was praying that didn't happen. In any event, welcome to the Reading Circle, and she is on like a nationwide book tour for Make It Rain, and I am so thrilled and honored that you took time to bring the Make It Rain book tour to the Reading Circle. So, thank you for that. Where are you calling out of California?
No. I am actually in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, so that's not as bad. Every now and again, I do get guests from the West Coast, and when it's 7 o'clock here, it's 4 o'clock there. So Cleveland, you're in Central Time or East Time?
Oh, I'm in Eastern Standard.
Okay, so it's 7 o'clock your time too then?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's not too bad. It's still early, but not as early as 4 o'clock. All right. So
no, much better.
I've read your bio, and I like to read the whole thing because I love to have the opportunity to use the biographies of folks who have, quote unquote, made it to inspire and encourage those who are listening to say, you know what, if that can happen for AREVA, that can happen for me too. So a lot of time my guests will say, oh, you don't have to read the whole thing, so forth and so on. No, I like to read the whole thing, especially when it's as impressive as this, to encourage someone else that, you know what, shoot for it, go for it. And I got a kind of feeling that's what Make It Rain is all about.
Yeah, it's really about growing your personal power and your influence. Finding that which you are passionate about, matching your passion with your skills, your expertise, and your authentic voice. What is it that you want people to know about you? What conversations do you want to jump into? Who do you want to influence? Who do you want to compel or to move to action? And, in today's society where we are all connected pretty much all the time, and media has been redefined, there's so many channels, so many opportunities for people to share original content, to amplify their voices. And this book helps them do that. Gives them the steps, gives them those step-by-step instructions needed to find your voice, amplify your voice, connect with your people, and do what I like to call is make it rain, which is, again, to grow your influence and your power.
Now, interestingly enough, this month is Autism Awareness Month. I believe it's this month. It is. Yes, it is, because I know we did something at my school. Yes, we did. We did a whole week of autism activities acknowledging the month. And so when I saw that in your bio, I see that you wrote the everyday advocate standing up for your child with autism and other special needs. So then you leaped from that to now Make It Rain. Is there a connection there in terms of like getting your message out? Because clearly the first book is about getting a message out in terms of autism. And now this one is about building your brand, getting your voice out, so forth and so on. Help me understand the two different focuses, or you just can multi-focus like that.
Well, books don't have to be sequels, so it's not like a movie.
Correct.
There's the first version, and then there's the sequel to that version, and maybe there's a third version. So these books aren't related in that way. But that being said, they both are about people finding their unique voices. With respect to the autism book, it was really trying to help parents learn to navigate systems of care, learn how to speak up for their kids with autism, to be advocates for their kids. And in many ways, Make It Rain is the same concept,
right.
Not with respect to autism or special needs, but a broader concept. So whether you're trying to move the needle on gun control laws, like we saw those students in Florida do, or you're trying to get more people to come to your local restaurant, it's all about finding those people and connecting with them. And in the autism book, I was trying to help people who were moving the needle on resources and services for their kids.
You went exactly where I was going with the question, because the point where I was going with that is there's never been a better time right now in our history of being able to get your voice out there and to get heard. And the fact that you put now a book together to kind of give people strategies of how to best utilize things. In other words, I think one of your chapters says something about forget the old social media. That's chapter 8.
Yes.
And you hear me talking about the fact that we're playing all vinyl this weekend and going through the various technologies. I remember there was a time, even with publishing books or getting music out there, where you had to go through a publishing company, or you had to go through, like if you're doing music, you had to go through the music companies. But
everybody
now
wanted a deal. You needed a deal.
So now you can self-publish books, you can self-publish your musical works or what have you. And then it's just a matter of getting out there and making sure somebody knows, because now there's a lot of, since it's so accessible to all of us, there's a lot of us out there. So talk a little bit about what are some of the strategies to kind of move yourself away from the crowd? How do you get out there and make yourself known amongst everybody else who's already out there?
Well, first, you just said something so very important, and I call it the democratization of information, which basically means information now is readily available, as you said, so accessible. You don't need a huge record label. You don't need a huge publishing company. All you need is a smartphone, and anyone who has a smartphone, you're now a reporter, you're a storyteller, you are a promoter, you're a marketeer, and you can do all of those things just with a phone. You don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. You don't have to wait to be discovered, hope to be discovered. You can start creating content and pushing that content out for very little cost, in most cases free, using various social media sites. So that's important for people to understand, that the game has changed in significant ways from the days when those vinyls you're talking about, all of those vinyls were created in studios. Record labels created those vinyls. They controlled the distribution of those vinyls. Radio stations determined which vinyls they played. So artists, had very little power in that whole process. Today, as you just said, you can record a song literally on your phone, download it to a YouTube channel, push it out on your Twitter account, push it out on Snapchat, Facebook, and a song can go viral, and someone can find themselves 7 million or 10 million, downloads of a particular song that they recorded in their, basement or garage or wherever. So that's really important to note. In terms of how you distinguish yourself, that is important because there's a lot of noise. The good thing is you have all this accessibility. The bad thing is you have all this accessibility.
Correct.
So, you're competing. A friend of mine said he's a film maker, and he was trying to get his film screened someplace, and the folks said, look, you have a Ferrari, no doubt, but the problem is I have 100 other Ferraris, waiting in line. So, yes, you can be your own storyteller, your own reporter, but you have to learn to break through the noise because you are competing with, hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions of voices around the world, not just the country, the world, who are also, producing content. But, that's nothing different. People have had to do that down through the ages. And a part of what I do in the book is walk you through a process to help you do that. Identify what is your authentic voice. We all have, our own individual DNA, something that makes us unique from the next person. And the question is, how do you find that voice? How do you tap into that which makes you unique? And I, like I said, in the book, Make It Rain, I give you some steps to help you do that.
A couple of things in terms of what you just said. First off, I have like 2 CDs, musical CDs that I've released and put out into the market. I was able to self-publish exactly what you're saying in terms of branding and everything and being able to have voice. And that's why your book is going to be personally important to me, because I have the podcast, I have the radio show here, I have the blog, I have the public speaking. It's a whole lot. It's almost like the Marc Medley Communications Company, whatever, if you want to call it. And the question is, how do you get it out there, like I said, to get noticed? Now, the other interesting thing I found is something about social media that is different from back in the day when I was a kid, writing a letter to the Yankees or writing a letter to the Pittsburgh Steelers that may or may not get seen. But for some reason in social media, whenever we hit people up, regardless of their status, you get a response. Like, take a case in point with you. We met on LinkedIn. And I sent the invitation, said, I'd love to have you on the show. I've noticed because I was following you on LinkedIn, seeing the book tour and everything. I said, I'd love to have her as a guest. And that's it. Right after you had agreed to do the show, and I was watching CNN, and I saw you pop up on CNN as one of the panelists, and I did a double look. I said, "Wait a minute, that's who I just booked to be on the show." What is it about social media that, regardless of your high profile or no profile, people tend to communicate?
Because that's what social media is all about. It's about engagement, and you're right. Again, X number of years ago, if you wanted to reach out to someone, a celebrity, a talent, you had to, send a formal letter or request. You had to go through agents and managers and, hope that someone would read your letter and get back to you. And the chances weren't that great. But social media is a great equalizer. And I talk to literally hundreds of people every day. I meet people. I've done deals with people. I've created collaborations with people and fairly high-profile people because, again, there's this medium, the internet, the social media platforms are designed in that way, and people recognize that you don't have to go through, all the gatekeepers. And businesses have been put out of business in some cases because of social media and the accessibility. And in the book, I talk about how people can connect with influencers on social media. And that's why it's so important to have a profile. It's important to build that profile because not only can you connect with influencers, brands, big brands,
right,
people get huge endorsement deals. I just did an event in New York, part of my tour. I did an event with the United Way of New York City and Coach, the lifestyle brand Coach, and they have a deal. They signed a deal, Coach did, with Selena Gomez, and a part of what was attractive to Coach in doing that deal was Selena Gomez's huge Instagram account. She has,
wow,
I don't know, one of the biggest Instagram accounts, Twitter accounts. So the social media platform is huge, so big, such that it got the attention of Coach, and she's now a brand ambassador for Coach. So, again, something you can create on your own without the help of a big label or big company, but yet it can attract a big company such as Coach, and that's how you can monetize. And I talk about that at, the last chapter of the book is, how do you monetize your brand? And that's so important because people, invest hundreds of thousands of hours in their brand and creating it. And I show you how to monetize that in the last chapter of the book.
Well, again, it is phenomenal to me because I remember years ago, historically, when MySpace came out, and MySpace was predominantly, in my mind, I thought it was for kids. And, the kids were on that. And then this thing called Facebook came out, and people were asking me, do you have a Facebook account? Do you have a Facebook account? I said, I don't be bothered with it. That's for kids. I know, because I'm thinking MySpace, Facebook, same type deal. But the light bulb went on because this is like my 17th year on the air, and this is going back some years ago. The light bulb went on. I said, wait a minute, I could promote the show through there. And when I tell you, that's when this show took off in terms of the guests I was able to start getting. I mean, I have folks, I've had Nikki Giovanni on here. I've had Judge Hatchett. I've had Martin Luther King's nephew, Isaac Farris. I've had his cousin. I've had people from all walks of life, like I said, from the high profile to the no profile. And most of those guests were through social media. Like I said, it's just something about whenever you contact them through one of these forms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, people respond. I mean, I literally sit there and watch like a TV show, because that's the other thing too. You can tweet back and forth now between TV shows, but the actors and the actresses will respond back to you. And for me, that's just phenomenal. And the fact, like you just were saying, that your every ordinary average Joe or Joette can get in contact with folks and they can start promoting them. Like even for this show that we did this week, when you first agreed, I started putting on all my social media sites. And then when I got closer, I started doing a few things with technology. There's this app called Ripple where it'll allow you to put a picture and the words can move. It makes a little video. So like you said, from my iPhone, I was able to do a little promotion and then push it out to all my sites. So everybody knew that AREVA Martin was going to be on the air with me this morning. But it is amazing. So what do you say in terms of like someone who is not technologically inclined?
That's a good question, and I love that you said that initially you were like, Facebook, that's for kids. That is the response of a lot of people, depending on your age, when you were born, and that's a notion that people have to get over, because it's an antiquated notion and it won't serve you well in today's climate. Because the reality is, people are going to Google you before they do anything. So don't bother sending your resume to anyone, because they already are going to know everything they need to know about you before they get the resume. And they're going to go to your social sites. And that's how people are going to make decisions. They're going to make decisions about whether to be on your show, hire you to perform a service, buy a product from you. All that information is now publicly available. So I don't need you, like I did 10 years ago, to send me your resume or your CV or copies of your book. By the time you and I have any engagement, I can already find out. I've already been able to find out pretty much, most things about you, me, anyone. It's accessible to all of us. So you've got to embrace the new world order, which is social media. It's where we are. We see even from the White House.
Right.
We have the first he's not the first social media president, because Barack Obama, used social media to raise, what they used to call more money than God.
Correct.
Using social media.
That's correct.
And he frequently, if you recall, he would go on to podcasts, particularly millennial podcasts. He would do interviews on YouTube with millennials, and not just the big names. It wasn't just the Oprahs of the world, or the late night comedy shows, or the world news shows. He went on shows of, like I said, 21-year-olds, because those shows had such a broad reach. They had such a big audience. And he recognized that when he wanted to encourage young people to, take some particular action, he went where they were. And that was, with some of those millennial podcasters. So it's just really important for people to understand, you don't have to be Stephen Jobs. You don't have to be someone with an engineering degree or a degree in computer science. This information technology is available, and it's learnable. So I have an 84-year-old aunt. She's on Facebook all the time. She follows me on Twitter. She follows, she has a cast of characters that she follows on Twitter. And I say to someone, if an 84-year-old
that's right.
to, manipulate and utilize social media, I don't want to hear anyone complaining that this is too hard, it's too tough, it's too confusing. No, it's not. It's a commitment of time. Yes, you've got to sit down and commit yourself to time, but you just yourself said you created a promotional, basically a commercial.
Right.
On your cell phone, on your smartphone.
Correct. And you're absolutely right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. For me, it's fun just, experimenting and playing with them and getting the messages out there. And what you were just saying is a great segue to your first chapter, which is make your own luck. Like, it's like if you're waiting around for something to happen, it's not going to happen. You're going to have to get out there and make your way. So let's talk a little bit about, like, make your own luck.
Yeah, and a lot of people, think they'll see someone that's successful on television or read about them in a magazine, and they think that, they got what we used to call discovered. They were walking down the street and someone says, "Hey, you're beautiful and you're smart and sing me a song. Oh my God, you have great, singing voice. I'm going to put you in the studio and make you a star." That's not, that's fantasy. That's not how the real world works. The real world works where people work hard and they build their brands, they promote themselves, and they get the attention then of other people. So you create your own luck. It's essentially saying you decide who you are and, what your brand is, and you protect that brand, hopefully, and you promote that brand. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what you do. That's what the media channels allow you to do. And we've seen countless examples of that. And when you see someone who finally does get tons of notoriety, I'll use someone as big as Beyonce, the backstory is always about how hard that person worked.
That's correct.
How many years they were, working at their particular craft. Rarely, and I do mean rarely, is the story that, on day one someone did something and now on day two there's some big sensation. Usually it is years and years of hard work that has gone into it, a lot of it behind the scenes, a lot of it, without a lot of fanfare, outside the public eye, and it's brick by brick, someone who's building, towards something, and then ultimately, it catches on, and people start to identify with them.
No, you're absolutely right, because something I read years ago, and it was something along the lines of, if it looks easy, it ain't. And that means there's a lot. In other words, if something looks very easy, if you're watching someone and it looks easier, they've put a lot of work into it for it to look that easy. I always share the story with Larry Bird back whenever he was with the Boston Celtics, how the story goes that he counted every nail on that wood floor. He knew exactly when that ball hit that particular spot on the floor, how it was going to bounce. You talk about Michael Jordan, whenever after the tough games, he now ran back around the arena X number of times and still worked out after the game. That's why they could make those jump shots at the buzzer.
Yes.
Right. That just didn't come from the fact that, they could shoot and they were good. That came from the work. So a lot of times, whether it's relationships, whether it's, making celebrityhood or whatever it is, parenthood or whatever, if somebody's making it look easy, you can rest assured that a lot of work is going into it behind the scenes.
No, absolutely. And sometimes that's lost, particularly in a world where, everything looks like it happens overnight. And one thing I tell people about social media, oftentimes people are showing you, their best selves on their best days, which is fine. And, that they're allowed to do that. That's a part of them, again, controlling their own narrative.
Right.
And I caution people about, making comparisons of themselves on social, looking at what looks like the greener grass and someone who, has the perfect life and everything that looks perfect, because as we know, as adults, there is no such thing as that kind of perfection. But what I love about social is it does allow us to connect with people. I do, as you mentioned, my autism work. I have to raise money for my nonprofit Special Needs Network, and one way I do that is through galas. And one of my galas always happens in May, week after Mother's Day. It's a big fashion show, and it's a women-focused event. And for the fashion show, we have big brand designers.
Right.
And some of these designers I've met literally the way you and I met on social. Someone I'm following, perhaps they're following me, they leave a comment, I leave a comment, and we start a conversation back and forth. And this year, Kevin Hall, who's a former designer for Halston, who also now designs couture gowns for A-list celebrities, is going to donate his time, his resources, an entire fashion show for our gala. And it started with a comment. I started noticing on my Instagram account that he was liking my pictures. And I then went and looked at his profile. I said, oh, wow, this is a big name, fashion designer.
Right.
And let me follow him back. And I started following him back, and we started liking each other's photographs, leaving each other occasional comments, not long paragraphs, just one word oftentimes. But from there, I was able to reach out to him, tell him what I did, tell him about this project, and he's like, I'm on board, I'm in. So I tell those kinds of stories because, again, 10 years ago, if I wanted to reach a designer for a major, fashion brand, I would have had to send him, a package, a whole marketing kit of who I am, who the organization is, and who knows if it would even have ever reached the individual. Probably not. Probably would have went to, again, those handlers. But social media, you cut right through that. You get right to the decision maker.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And see, as I was sharing earlier, now for me, I'm not one per se who gets starstruck. In other words, for me, people are people are people. It's just that celebrities have a bigger audience and are seen by more people and make more money. But other than that, people are people. But at the same time, as I said, it always blows me away that through social media, you can connect with folks who are, as I said, way, way up there, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. And you can begin building those relationships. What do you say to the folks who, like, I guess somewhere in their mind, they say, oh, somebody like AREVA would never respond back to me?
But that's okay. AREVA doesn't need to respond to you. I was talking last night at Cleveland. I'm here to do 2 book events. And one of the questions was, well, how do you, project a brand, particularly I was talking to business owners who were concerned about voicing their opinions and getting involved in conversations that could be controversial. The question was, how do you do this without alienating, some part of the market? I said, the reality is you don't need all of the market. No business has all of the market. So you don't need to talk to everyone on social. Yeah, some people are going to ignore you.
Right.
To start there. They're not going to talk back to you. They're not going to respond. They're not going to like your pictures. But that's okay. We're talking about billions of people.
Right.
So the fact that one person, 100 people, let's say even 1,000 reject you, what do you care? Because there's still, remember, 1 billion people that you have potential.
And see, my thing is based on what you were just saying, the hit rate on social media is still way ahead of the hit rate of the old letter back in the day, or the packages or the publishing companies. The hit rate on social media is much higher. Because I said, as a kid, I remember sending letters to Yankee Stadium or to the Steelers or to whomever, not to get anything back. So you're absolutely right. In that method, and back in that time, you didn't hear anything either.
Never. There wasn't probably even a possibility. I mean, I can't even, and you're right, I used to cold call in my law firm for clients, and if you got one person, I mean, you maybe would sit on literally, and you think about, cold call salespeople who call hundreds and hundreds of people just hoping to get one person that wouldn't hang up in their face. Now, literally, the time that it would take you to call those 100 people, you've reached 100,000.
Right.
You've reached 1 million people in that same time frame. And the return, as you said, is so much greater than it ever could have been. So I tell people, there are people I've reached out to, and they never, ever respond. But then look at all the people, like I just gave you the example of Kevin Hall.
Right.
Did respond, and not only responded, now we have a collaboration, and I can go through a list of people very similarly. So many of the television shows that in the early days before I had contracts with stations and I was just guest appearing, I would book appearances through social. I would go on Twitter and state my opinions about what was happening in the news. I maybe would post videos from me appearing on other shows, and editors and producers follow people, and they're watching those social accounts. I would connect with editors and producers on social. So don't worry that everybody you reach out to doesn't respond, because that's not realistic anyhow. That's not how life works.
Right, and I'm glad
the ones that don't respond.
Right, I'm glad you said it, because where I was going in the angle of the question was, there are folks who are scared to reach out to somebody like you or whomever with the fear of rejection. And what you're saying is so true. Reach out to them anyway. If they respond to you, great. If they don't, great also. And because you have so many opportunities to reach out to so many different people now, if one doesn't respond, you just keep it moving.
Absolutely. And they may not respond today.
Right.
Doesn't mean they may not, a year may go by, 6 months may go by, and your circumstances change, their circumstances change, and something may, create an opportunity for there to be a connection. So I don't worry about the people that don't respond. It's like the people that don't come to your restaurant. It's like people are in the restaurant. You can't worry about the ones that choose not to.
No, that's good. And see, and what I'm doing is I'm connecting in terms, to me, that's a part of making your own luck. And also a part of making your own luck, because I'm looking here at chapter 4 where it says hone your pitch. And this is going back to that preparation thing again. Because now, let's say, for example, you've reached out to these folks and they have reached out to you back and they want to do something with you. You better be able to deliver.
Yes. Now, yes, what do you have to say to me? Hello. And I talk about in the book things that you want to say to people and things that you don't want to say to people and help you, because you're so, correct in that. Sometimes when I reach out to someone and say, hey, what's up? What's going on? Tell me about you. And what's your response going to be? And you don't get, as we all know, a second chance to make a first impression. So when you get that opportunity, are you ready? And how are you going to handle it?
That is correct. And for those of you, if you've just joined us, which I hope you've been with me at least since 7. Actually, I hope you've been with me since 6. But certainly by at least 7 o'clock, I hope you join me. My guest this morning is AREVA Martin, and we're talking about her book, Make It Rain, her latest work, which is Make It Rain. She's on a worldwide book tour with Make It Rain, and I am grateful that she took the time to join us here on the Reading Circle to share with that as well. And again, this book is not just for those, let me see how I want to say this. It's for anybody that's trying to build their brand, to get their word, to, like she said, to give somebody a voice. All right, that's one of my questions. Who is your target audience for this book?
Good question. So when the book was first introduced to the marketplace, which was just 30 days ago, I sat down with Dr. Phil for an interview on his show, and he said, if you own a computer, you need to get this book. So that was a great endorsement by him, unsolicited. I would agree with him. If you own a computer, you're creating a digital footprint, whether you like it or not. And today, people, all of us who do anything in the public, I mean, if you do anything on social media, you're a brand. And the book is for brands. So it's not just for entrepreneurs, although there's tons of valuable information for entrepreneurs, or people, independent brands. So whether you're an artist, an author, a clothing designer, a small business owner, you own a restaurant, you own a training facility, you own a bakery shop. If you are an activist, you're someone in your community that you care about policing, you care about, potholes, and you're trying to influence your elected officials to enact particular legislation, this book is for you. So if you're trying to move people to action, this is a book that will help you do that. Because you can't move people to action if people don't know who you are, if you don't have a skillfully crafted message, if you don't know how to deliver that message, and that's what the book helps you do. So we could just run through a list: entrepreneurs, business owners, authors, activists, advocates. This is a book for you.
Which leads me to one of the chapters again. That's chapter 5, become a trusted source. So once you're now out there and you've honed your pitch, people know who you are, you don't want to get out there and mislead somebody.
Yeah, and a part of it is, people are going to, when you start to build a platform and you start to build followers, people are going to look for you. What do you think about this? Who's Marc's guest? So when you book guests on your show, people are going to come back and listen to the show because you have credible guests that give out valuable information. You're engaged in, interesting conversations with them. So you have an obligation to, again, ensure that you're creating good content for your followers. And that's very important because when you do, that's how you build loyalty. That's how you can trust that they will come back again and again and again. And I'll use you as an example, as a radio program, you need listeners. You need an audience that's going to tune in every time your program comes on the air. And you've got to give them a reason to do that.
That's absolutely right. And in terms of building trust and everything, absolutely right. And I could not agree with you more. And that's why, in terms of credibility, you've got to have that. And it's interesting because every now and again, because my show is a weekend show, I'm not up in the studio during the week. So every now and again, there'll be a programming snafu. And then this weekend almost was one of them because we were doing the Vinyl-thon. They were kind of like, we're doing Vinyl-thon all weekend. Do you think, you might want to not do your show, or either, you have to play vinyl through your show? I said, okay, that's not a problem. I said, I know how to play the vinyl, so it's not an issue. I said, but I don't want to cancel the show because I've heavily promoted it and I don't want folks to go there and I'm not there. So you don't want issues like that. So they were kind and gracious enough to say, that's not an issue. We can work that. You can still do your interviews. You play the vinyl, not an issue. I said, great. We can make that work. But you do want to establish credibility, and you don't want a situation where people are turning on their radio at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning and you're not there. That's in terms of, me personally. I want to make sure that if I've promised it, that I'm going to deliver. And I'm looking here, and again, I'm working my way through the book because we're not giving you everything. We're just kind of whetting your appetite, listening audience, because I do want you to go out and purchase the book. Go, and we were talking about this kind of sort of a couple minutes ago in terms of don't have any fear in terms of reaching out to people or reaching out to connections or making connections. One of the chapters is go for media channels, and it didn't just say go for media channels. It said big and small. So in other words, right. Don't limit yourself, but talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's so important because, in terms of who this book is for, it relates to that, and people sometimes will say, well, Areva, you're on Dr. Phil, or you're on CNN or ABC, Good Morning America. I couldn't possibly do that. And again, I say, that's fine, because you're not supposed to do what Areva does, and Areva's not supposed to do what Bob does, and Bob doesn't have to do what Betty does. That's not how the world works. You could be inspired by people, but you're not going to, replicate everything that even your role model does. They're just there to inspire you to be your best self and to be, your authentic self. So the question is, what's best for you and your brand? Where are the people that are most likely going to, be compelled to action because of you? Who are the people that your message will resonate with? I talked earlier about President Obama going on those podcasts, those millennial podcasts. So if you're trying to reach, 18 to 25-year-olds, why would you be on World News Tonight? They're not watching World News Tonight. They're not watching CNN. That's not where they get their news from. That's where they get their information from. So the question is, where are the people that you're trying to connect with? So when Obama wanted to reach those millennials, he didn't go on, NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, because 18-year-olds are not watching Lester Holt. So that's what that chapter is all about. It's really, again, not just doing this by the numbers or copying someone else, which is unfortunately kind of a tendency I think people have. Oh, Bob he has a radio show, so I should have a radio show. Okay, well, maybe you should, but maybe you really shouldn't. Maybe a radio show is not going to be the best way for you to connect with the people you want to connect with. So first of all, what is your goal?
Right.
It's so important, identifying what your personal goals are, and that will help you start to define, what's best for you. Again, I give some great examples in the book about people who use local TV, people who use podcasts, people who use different streaming sites to get their messages out to the people, who their message resonates with the most.
Absolutely. In terms of, and this one, the chapter that I'm about to talk about is chapter 7, and I kind of like, as an educator, personally, I think folks need to stay current, whether it's radio, magazines, books, news, or whatever, if for anything else, they'll be able to have conversation. But certainly if you're in this field of having a voice, you kind of need to know what's going on. And I see in chapter 7, you said jump on breaking news stories.
Yes, and you're right. People need to be well-read and informed because there's so much happening, and it's not happening in a vacuum. It's happening, it impacts our lives. And I often hear people say, well, I don't read the paper. And I say, fine, you don't have to. But you have to get information through some source. So whether you go on Facebook and use that as your source for getting information, or you go to LinkedIn or Twitter, but I would hope that everyone appreciates the value of understanding what's going on and how it impacts their families, their communities, and their own personal lives. And breaking news is just that. It could be national breaking news, or it could be, breaking news in your own community. But you have an opportunity, and again, more than ever, to be a part of that news. And if you have an expertise, if you have a skill set that could bring some clarity to a new situation, the book will show you how to do that.
And we're working our way through here. We're at engage or fail. It's kind of plain and simple. That's kind of like a look now. Engage or fail. Like if you don't get in the game, if you don't engage, it's not going to rain.
That's pretty much it. That's the reality. And again, engage is just that. And on social media, I always tell people, social media is not a popularity contest as much as it may look like it is. You're not running for prom queen or prom king, and you don't want to be there just to feed your ego or to get affirmations. You want to be there to engage, have meaningful exchanges of ideas and concepts with people, and that's what it allows you to do, to literally, have thousands of conversations with people. And again, in the book, I tell you the difference between, having a lot of followers and having a lot of influence. And there is a difference. So everybody that has a lot of followers doesn't have a lot of influence. And what you want to have is about personal power and influence, growing your influence. And engagement is key to growing your influence.
That's an extremely interesting point in terms of the difference between followers and influence, because every now and again we get caught up in the trap. I get caught up in the trap myself, because I know on LinkedIn I just crossed over 15,000 connections, and I know like on LinkedIn I think every 5,000 or so is kind of like a benchmark. And you can get caught up in that. But if the 15,000, if I'm not getting like guests or anything out of that, really it's kind of like, and the same thing, everybody's on there, they're connecting whatever their business is or what have you. But if you're not kind of getting something out of it, really it is just like popularity contest. That's a very good point.
No, absolutely. And it may be that someone with 5,000, and you can look at different people, somebody with 5,000 followers, but that has a ton of engagement with those 5,000 people, may be getting a whole lot more out of it than someone with 50,000 who has very little engagement. So it's not always about the numbers, it's the quality of the numbers. And we can say that about a lot of different things. Quantity doesn't always matter. It's the quality of those numbers. So, how engaged are your 15,000, your 5,000, your 25,000? When you get to 100,000, the question you should be asking is what is the level of engagement? Because if you don't have a lot of engagement, you just, you just run up a scorecard, but it's not a very valuable scorecard.
Right.
It's like, Michael Jordan running up, the scoreboard against a 10-year-old. Well, yeah, Michael, you got 1,000 points, but, you're playing a 10-year-old. That. So, that's my best sports analogy I can give you, but I think you get it.
It's absolutely on point. It really is. Which, as we were just talking a couple of seconds ago about the difference between the influence and the learner, which is sort of kind of like chapter 10, learn your connections. Like, okay, you've got these connections, now use them to your advantage in order for, which is the last chapter, chapter 11, in order for you to be able to ratchet rain, you really need to maximize all these connections on the various social media sites and not just collect them, if you will.
Yeah, I think back to the Rolodex days, or the business card days, where some people are just notorious for collecting collecting hundreds and hundreds of business cards, but they never did anything with them. They just had collections of business cards, or the proverbial "we must do lunch." But there's never a follow-up, and there's never any lunch or exchange that would happen. The same thing is true on social. You can just run up a scorecard with likes and numbers, but you're not doing anything with those numbers. So, whether it's old school networking where you did literally meet people and exchange business cards, or it's the new form of, hooking up or connecting on social media, what are you doing with all of these connections? How are you engaging them? It makes a difference in your, what you get on, what you put in is what you get out. So if you're putting a whole lot in, you're making a big investment, you're going to see a major return. No doubt about that. Your investment will pay huge dividends. But if you're just like those days collecting business cards that you do nothing with, small investment, small return.
Absolutely. How important is it to have a website or a web page?
Again, what are you trying to do? Some people don't need a web page. For what? Have you ever gone to somebody's web page? You think, what is this for? Why? What's the point? You don't know just because you have one, I have one, or 5 other people that you don't have one. That's not a reason to have one. What are you promoting? What information, what content are you providing through this web page? What am I going to go there and find? You definitely don't have one if you don't have anything to put there.
Right.
Or, so, again, what is your goal? I say, that's the lens through which every decision you make should be made. What is your why? And you should be able to ask yourself, why do I need this?
So if somebody listening to this and says, well, okay, how do I make that leap from local to being on CNN and Dr. Phil? What do you tell them? I mean, like, how do I wind up on Dr. Phil? How do I wind up on
that's what I'm right. First of all, you may never, and why you want to be there. Again, I'm going to tell you, you need to assess what it is you're trying to do. What message? What is your message? What is your brand? And who are you trying to connect with? There's a whole chapter that we didn't talk about, which is finding your people.
Right.
And knowing who your people are. Not everybody is going to end up on CNN or Dr. Phil or Good Morning America. Just like you would tell kids who love basketball, everybody's not going to the NBA.
Correct.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't play basketball. Right? Shouldn't mean you shouldn't work out. You shouldn't have that shape. You shouldn't eat right. Sports has, so many other attributes, some other valuable things that your kids learn from playing sports. So the same thing with this book, there's so much value in growing a brand and connecting that brand with people. And the end game shouldn't just be one show or one, media outlet, or in the case of sports, just going to a professional sports team. Because if that's it, then you're going to miss all of the tremendous opportunities along the way, all of the tremendous valuable things that you'll learn and that you'll experience along the way. Some people, that might be the ultimate goal, and the book will help you get there if that is the ultimate goal, and if that makes sense for your brand, for your voice. But for others, don't start the book fixated on that, because that may not be what's best. It may not be the most strategic play for you, depending on, and I'll give you a concrete example. You've got a local restaurant in Newark, New Jersey, and your goal is to populate that restaurant every day. CNN isn't going to help you do that, because you'd be much better, your time would be much better utilized if you run some of the local media channels in Newark, New Jersey, because the people that can physically get to your restaurant, they live in Newark.
Correct.
If I live in Des Moines, Iowa, and I see you on CNN, I can't get to Newark. I'm never going to get to your restaurant. So you have to tell your mom, your dad, hey, I was on CNN talking about the restaurant. That's great. but the restaurant's empty. So, what have you accomplished?
Right.
So that's why when I talk about being strategic and knowing, who are the people you're trying to connect with, that's so important. It's not important to me in California. I've never heard of your restaurant, but you might have the most the popular restaurant in New Jersey, and that's a wonderful thing. You monetize that brand.
That's correct. Well, we've come down to just about the end of the interview. And all I do at the end of the interview is I allow the guest to promote in any way he or she would like, with the exception of the dollar amount, but any book signings, where they be next, any upcoming projects, how folks can get a hold of you, anybody you want to shout out. You have the opportunity to do it, and I am so grateful that you graced the reading circle with as many stops as we talked about market reading. I was certainly going to read, because like I said, I have the podcast, the radio show, the CDs, I actually am in the process of writing the book myself, and so there's a lot going on that I kind of like want to encapsulate into one kind of from a communication standpoint as well. So it will be invaluable to me, I can tell you that. It's personal. It's not just business, not just professional. It's personal. So at this point, you have the opportunity to, like I said, promote as much as you'd like, however you'd like.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be a part of your show, because I tell people all the time, writing a book is a lot easier than promoting and selling a book. And you can write the best book in the world, but if no one reads it, then, again, that defeats the whole purpose. So having an opportunity to talk to your viewers and our listeners is invaluable to me as I'm going around the country selling the book. So I would love people to check the book out. It's gotten amazing reviews on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's a bestseller on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Publishers Weekly, Nielsen. It's hit multiple bestsellers. It's only been a month, and I continue, the sales continue to climb. You can purchase it on Amazon. You can purchase it on Books of Now, 1-800-CEO. Welcome to Barnes & Noble, the independent bookstore, and get a copy of it. What I love for readers to do is, whether you read the hard copy or you do the audio version or the Kindle version, just write me a review on Amazon. Authors living down by reviews. People go to Amazon, if the book has 200 or 300 reviews, that sends a message that this is a pretty important piece of work, and maybe I should check it out. And it's hard to get people to write reviews, even people that love the book. There's something about just taking that 10 minutes and going to Amazon and doing so. But I would encourage people, when you pick up this book and I know reading it, I'm going to be utilizing some of the principles as you promote your various projects, to please write me a review on Amazon. You can go to my website, marc.com, and I have a blog site called The Download, where I share tons of content, have some videos on the website that are related to the book. So lots of good content on AREVAMartin.com. Follow me on social media. Be a part of the conversation. I'm having really interesting conversations on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, Pinterest, all at AREVA Martin. And our conversations about everything from politics to celebrity news to interesting legal cases that are in the news. I talk a lot, have a lot of conversations going on about autism and special needs, women and children's issues. So lots of interesting conversations, and I love connecting with people. So, join me in some of these conversations on social media at AREVA Martin, and I look forward to meeting on this tour. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. I go to St. Louis, May 7th and 8th. I'll be in St. Louis doing some book events. Then I go to Miami in June. I'll be at the NAACP annual convention. I'll be at the Urban Elite National Convention. I'll be at the National Association of Black Journalists in Detroit. So I've got lots of stops on this tour, pretty much through September. I'm looking forward to many influencers and lawmakers all over the country, and just love hearing stories of people. Love connecting with people and hearing how they're making it rain in their own lives and in the lives of others in their communities.
Well, I tell you again, I am grateful and thankful and feel blessed that you stopped this way, and I will definitely write you a review when I'm done with it, because I write reviews. I don't have a problem with reviews because I like to write. Reading and writing and speaking, that's my passions. So when it comes to reviews and all that, I have no problem with putting some words together to let folks know how the book was. And again, I thank you. I wish you nothing but the absolute best with the book. I know it's going to be great, or it is great, shall I say. Not even going to be, it already is. And the fact that you're sharing, because see, you've for the most part, as for lack of a better phrase or term, you've gotten there. And the fact that you're willing to share how others can get there is a blessing in and of itself. That you're not stingy with the information. You're not stingy with, you know what, I got there and I don't care if anybody else gets there or not. You're giving folks the strategies and the tactics of how they can get there too. And so that ought to be much appreciated for those in the listening audience. Again, thank you. This will be on my YouTube channel as well. AREVA, I've recorded it, and after all the editing and all that is done, I'll send you a copy of the MP3 link, and you can do whatever you'd like with it, however you want to share it, or whatever you'd like to do with it. It's yours at that point. But I'll have it on my YouTube channel as well. And wonderful talking to you. I'm glad that we've connected.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you, and much success to you in all of your endeavors.
Thank you very much. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your tour, wonderful rest of your day, wonderful life, wonderful everything. And we'll be in touch again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Take care now.